Welcome to the West Canada Valley Board of Education meeting, December 12th, 2022. Please stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to hear from the administrators. Mrs. Holmes?
So November, December, usually a lot of fun goes on in the elementary. November 15th, we had 3 of our 5th grade students attend the honors program through the Herkimer BOCES. It was a puppet show for them. And on the 21st and 22nd, we did the half days, we did the parent-teacher conferences. Had a great turnout for that. It's helping that some of them can do remote if they can't get here in person. Just about 100% of them attended the conference. December 2nd, PTO had a family movie night. Parents and kids came in, they got to watch The Grinch. 3rd graders went on a field trip to Valley Cinema. They saw a wild crocodile. And on November 7th until December 13th, we've been doing our giving tree. We had a great turnout for giving tree. More kids than normal, but a great turnout. The community really came together for them. We've also got some meals going out. We've been collecting for the Cuyahoga Food Pantry. Lots of food there in the hallway ready for them. And then coming up this week, we've got all of our K-2 students visiting the Stanley in Utica. And they're going to see Click Clack Moo. That's based on a book that they've been reading. And then 3 of our 4th grade students will attend the honors program, which is Birds of Prey. Again, that's through Herkimer BOCES, and they're doing that at Herkimer Elementary. Any questions?
I just wanted to say that I've liked every day looking at who's going to be in the
Oh, the
case.
elf on the shelf.
Yeah.
I forgot the elf on the shelf. Yeah, that's fun too.
Those are great. Those are great.
Thank you.
I got here early.
I'd just like to see how you got in this.
Thank you. Mr. Ray?
So I told you guys last month that I had a staff member that was going to be retiring. She put it in her letter, and she'll be retiring January 6th. So I have an anticipated opening for that. We've also had some sicknesses over in the bus garage, so Friday was a little challenging. We're really short-staffed, but I think that's going through every place right now. But we were able to make it what we had, so that was good. Basketball, track, bowling, sports trips have started. We had a little influx here with some field trips too going on the next couple weeks. DOT was here on December 1st, no defects, everything was good. Our large buses are still expected to be delivered in January. They're done, they're in Oklahoma, they're just waiting to get delivered to Leonard Bus Sales in Rome, and then they'll go through them once they get here, and then we should be getting them, like I said, in January at some point. The small bus, little bad news on that. That's in Canada. They're kind of waiting for the chassis to be finished up, so that might end up getting pushed. They're thinking of February at some point at this point. So when I get some more news of that, I'll let you guys know. Any questions?
Thank you.
I just quickly, I found it, Mr. Ray mentioned he had to drive on Friday. We had some sickness going through, and then I happened to see a local district today that had to close because they didn't have enough bus drivers in a nearby district. So it's kind of nice that we have a few other people with licenses.
Yeah, we were down to the last on that night Friday. So we juggled a few things around and we got through it.
Did we get a couple more substitutes this
Yep,
year?
we did, that's
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. So without that, we would have been quite a.
Thanks. Mr. Doherty?
Nothing new to report on any of the fall sports since our last meeting. Winter sports are all up and running right now with the exception of modified basketball. They start practices as soon as we come back from Christmas break. They start games the Wednesday after Martin Luther King Day, and they're going to run all the way up through the first week of March. I think March 8th is the last, and that's just to help with flexibility because of officials, because there aren't a lot of officials right now. We still are hosting the boys tournament over Christmas break, the booster tournament that we always do, CVA, Mount Markham, and Onondaga. Our girls will be going to Adirondack to play in the tournament there with Herkimer, Beaver River, and Adirondack. Indoor track is up and running. I mentioned it last time, those meets are on Fridays and Thursdays this year due to availability down there. And also that everything's digital ticketing. If you ever go to an indoor track meet, it's all, you have to do the digital ticketing just like you do for sectional events. Spring sports, a little update on baseball. We're up to 12 now, which is encouraging. I don't know if those 12 always show up once we start playing, but you could run a season with 12. So as long as we have that number, we should be set here. Dowsville, since our last meeting, has backed out. They are not interested in doing a combination with us. They're actually going to go down and play with OESJ. But the other school that I had talked to previously was Remsen. They're going to try to field their own team. He's not hopeful. Well, he doesn't think it'll probably happen, and he said he does definitely have a handful of kids that'll want to play baseball somewhere. So there's still the potential for that. I'll give you info every month as it moves along with who's signing up and who's interested. As far as, and then the other thing I wanted to mention was we plan on starting after Christmas break, opening back up the fitness center and community swim. We had talked about that before, and you guys said go ahead and do that. So Mr. Russo and Mrs. Sandmeyer both come forward. They're willing to do that. So the plan right now is to start after Christmas break, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. The fitness center would be open from 5:30 to 8 o'clock. We would have one of them in there staffing it, making sure people sign in, so we have everybody signed in that's there. If anybody needs any help with the equipment, they'll be able to help them out with that, and they'll be able to monitor it and make sure everything's going smoothly in there. Tuesday nights, Mr. Russo will do the lifeguarding from 5:30 to 8 o'clock for community swim. The only thing I want to mention there, and I'll put it in a media post that goes out and everything too, that's adult community swim for people that want to come in and exercise. It's not like the free-for-all caddy shack where all the caddies come in, you know, kids are swimming. So that's for that. So Monday night through Thursday, there will be some sort of opportunity for the community to come in and use the facilities, and also we'll open up the hall walking again from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock on days that the school are in session, because I know a lot of people can't walk in town during the winter, so they want to come and do that here. So probably at the end of this week, I'll have that posted on the school website, and I'll have Mr. Roberts put it out on the school's Facebook page as well. So
What's the days for the walking?
walking is every day. Every day the school is in session. So because the custodians are here and they just come, people are good about that. And then the fitness center was Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. The pool was on Tuesdays. Anybody have any questions?
The new banners look nice. In the gym.
Those are actually, those were a gift that were given to us. That you're talking about, 1,000-point ones?
1,000 point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those were, the other ones are new too, though, but the school does those every year. We update the JV and the varsity ones, but the 1,000-point ones were gifted to us.
Oh, they were?
Yeah.
Oh,
Any other questions?
thanks.
Okay.
Hi, Mr. Broadbent.
Well,
So we had a couple of field trips since the last meeting. We also had OC's honors program where a few of our students went to Herkimer for a writing type of conference thing with Bruce Cobell. He actually came when we were kids.
I was gonna say that, the same guy that wrote the books with us.
Yeah, my teacher's an alien, got assigned at home, so our kids actually had an opportunity to go and, kind of listen to him and learn some writing skills from him. We also had the New York City trip, drama club. 47 students went on that trip. That was last Thursday. We had assembly for the 7th and 10th graders with the Denali group. They did a skills assessment. Each student took a test. Prior to the assembly, they brought that information with them, and they looked at the skills that they had, grouped them with the kids, discussed how they could use their skills and how they work with others. So it was actually a really good assembly for the kids. We had the middle school, high school concert December 1st. That was really nice. Kids did a great job. And sometime this week, we're supposed to be getting in our VR goggles for the expertise project, which once we get them in and I figure out how they work, I'll probably bring a couple pairs, and let you try them out on board meetings, see what we got. What they do is they allow you to, you put them on and then you're able to go into like local manufacturing and kind of look around the factory, how stuff's done, bridge making. They have, right now, I think 25 or 35 videos, and they're adding more and more It's a way to get our students out there, figure out, find out about jobs that maybe they don't know about, and experience firsthand through 3D goggles. So that was something we purchased with set money. So should be good. and interesting.
Where will those be available?
So, right now, Mr. Crawford, our tech teacher, he's joining me in meetings for training. Eventually, I'm hoping that we can utilize them throughout the school in different things. Maybe anatomy and physiology class. All depends what videos we have access to and stuff as we move along. But right now, we'll have 5 pairs, and the tech department is where we'll be using them, but we'll store them in the tech computer office across the hall. But eventually, hopefully, expand it a little bit. Any questions about middle school, high school?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Do you have any questions on the consent agenda? Motion to approve the consent agenda. Sarah first, Sean second, I just drew a blank there for a minute. Sean second, all in favor? Motion to enter executive session for appointment of personnel matters, including review and appointment of employees and contract negotiations. Janine first, Sarah second, all in favor? welcome back. We're on to action items, first personnel report. Motion to accept the resignation of Vanessa Boyer, social worker, effective December 16th, 2022. Janine first, Sarah second, all in favor? Motion to accept the resignation of Carol Leon, bus driver, for the purpose of retirement, effective January 6th, 2023. Sean first, Shauna second, all in favor? Motion to approve Rebecca McCaw, parent child care leave on or about December 12th, 2022, with anticipated return date on or about February 13th, 2023. Sean first, Shauna second, all in favor? Motion to approve Caitlin Cook, parent child care leave on or about January 17th, 2023, with anticipated return date on or about April 5th, 2023. Janine first, Sean second, all in favor? Motion to approve, yeah. Good. Kiara Blumenstock, non-certified substitute teacher, teacher assistant, monitor, aide, K through 12, for the district approved rate sheet, effective December 13th, 2022. Janine first, Sean second, all in favor? Motion to approve Taya Hummel, non-certified substitute teacher, teacher assistant, monitor, aide, K through 12, for the district approved rate sheet, retroactive to December 2nd, 2022. Janine first, Sarah second, all in favor? Motion to approve Carol Leon, substitute bus driver and substitute monitor, for the CSEA bargaining agreement, effective January 7th, 2023. Sean first, Sarah second, and all in favor? Motion to approve Tiffany Lynch, substitute custodian, for the CSEA bargaining agreement, effective December 13th, 2022. Sean first, Sarah second, all in favor? Budget calendar and budget.
Yeah, they're both of those documents we looked at last month. They're in your budget packet, the first 2 pages of your budget workshop packet. As part of your requirement annually, you have to approve those to set up the budget
Okay.
schedule for the year.
Motion to approve the budget calendar and budget assumptions. Sarah first, Sean second, all in favor? Senior trip, did we discuss that?
Yeah, so the senior trip in your packet is the itinerary for the one-night overnight trip. Overnight trip for this, we approve if they are taking an overnight trip. If you have any questions on this, I'll do my best to answer, but Mr. Broadbent's also here to answer any of those questions that you have. Other than that, if there are no questions, we simply need to approve the trip for the seniors.
Any questions on the trip?
Did they get a head count so far of how many are interested?
32 was the last head count I had. We had 31 last year.
How many students total?
32, yeah.
How many total altogether?
46,
How many seniors?
46 with some out-of-district kids.
Almost.
Yeah.
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 That's a lot.
Where's the itinerary?
64 wings on the
It's
top.
about 3/4
Oh.
way
I
through.
have that.
Yeah.
A motion to approve the senior trip. Janine first, Sean second, all in favor? Okay, moving on to the discussion items. First up is the budget workshop one.
All right, so generally, tonight is our first kickoff, but we kind of got started last month, as we talked about with our transportation. Usually, that's part of this month's discussion. We spent some time on the bus replacement plan, but we took care of that last month and moved forward with it. So, pretty much just a little bit of background information in this packet, along with our rate sheet we'll look at tonight, that aligns with our budget calendar that we approved tonight as well. I gave this to you ahead of time so that you could get an idea of what information that I'm receiving in regards to this year's state budget outlook and school aid. Obviously, if you got a chance to read through this, the outlook continues to be positive in terms of school aid, fully funding, the schools around the state. Right now, SED is estimating foundation aid will be increased by $2.68 billion or 12.6%. This is mainly due to the completion of the fully funding phase-in that started in past years and the impact of inflation on aid calculations. The funding expense-based aids and other aids, that's like our transportation and our capital and all those kinds of things. The current law is estimated to yield a net increase of $232 million, adding $125 million increase for pre-kindergarten that we've talked about. That's part of the increases that we've received here for UPK going into next year. So, again, these are really early projections, and things can change a little bit, but at least on a short-term basis, again, the aid, seems to be flowing to the schools this year. So, I would expect at least some optimism in that area. As you flip through your budget packet a little bit further, you'll see the transportation replacement plan is in there that we discussed last month. The same paperwork. Again, this workshop will build upon itself as we go from month to month here and approach our approval dates later on in March and April. The last page in here is the rate reference chart that we use that will get approved, once we approve the budget and so forth with this. This is just updated with dates. This is identical to what was approved last year by us in terms of what we pay all these different rate per diem type of rates. At this phase of the budget process, I am not anticipating recommending any increases on here. We'll look a little bit closer just to make sure we're all good with everything with minimum wage, but I think we took care of most of that last year. We've done increases the last 2 years on this sheet. Excuse me, so I, at this point, don't anticipate making recommendations on increases. However, as you look through this, if there's any questions or anything along the way here tonight, or as this will be in each month, you're looking at this differently, please let me know, and we'll do some financial analysis of that for you and see where we are. But this will get factored in along with how we budget for this stuff with these rates. So it's important that we get these in there so that we can give you, when we start to do the drafts, a little more accurate budget in terms of all that. So
once Mr. Russo is certified in his lifeguard stuff,
yep.
Will that take off the bottom section for that, because he would be able to do that?
So, Mr. Doherty, can you help me with that type of question here? Like, what variable will that have on this rate sheet and so forth? What will he be able to do for us?
That won't have any variable on that. So what he's gonna be doing is offering a class for the students here at school, which we won't charge the students obviously for taking the class. So he'll be able to do that and certify them through that. What this is for right here, this is what Mrs. Ellis used to do and Mr. Cool's taken over and he does it now. So every 2 years we schedule a first aid CPR refresh class that we hold on one of the last days. So as soon as high school lets out, when the teachers are here doing regencies and all that stuff, he hosts us down in room 3435. And all of the bus drivers that need to stay current on their CPR and AED come over here. And then all the coaches that we have working for the school, we invite them to come. I have some that can't because of work, but then they're responsible to get their own first aid outside of that. But that's what those rates are for there. They do that there to keep everybody current and on schedule so they're compliant with
People
that.
coming in doing that get paid that,
They get paid for doing that, yeah.
whoever you have in,
Mhm.
and it could be one of your faculty members,
It could be.
Yes. Mhm.
right?
Yeah, if they're certified, yep, through the Red Cross. Yeah. So, any other questions? That's really what I have. Like I said, a little bit of a shorter budget workshop one tonight because we dealt with the transportation last month. But that's kind of where we're at this point in time. As we get into January, as you know, we'll get really rolling with this and so forth. Any questions on it?
I still have a question on the rate sheet, the accompanist.
Yep.
Why is that person not considered part of the orchestra?
So, Mr. Duper, you're here tonight. So when we pay the when we pay the orchestra members, those are the people that are in the pit for the
Yes,
performances, like the musical and so forth?
yes, yep,
And the accompanist would be more for your purpose when they come in to help you out with your,
yep,
with the,
yep.
Piano.
The
Chorus,
accompanists that come in, they're there for our 3 concerts for the middle school, high school choruses. We have somebody that comes in that we go through BOCES, and so that's the accompanist fee. And then we also have a teacher that accompanies West Canadians, and they receive that same fee for their work. So that's separate from the orchestra. Yeah.
thank you, you saved me tonight.
Any other questions? Okay. Capital project update?
Okay. So, I gave you, we had a meeting that got pushed from last week until this morning at 9 o'clock. So we met for probably an hour and a half this morning. And I tried to give you a couple of the things that are associated with this morning's meeting. But I kind of want to give you an overview on this tonight. And then I got another update from Kelly a few minutes ago before the meeting started. So I don't have a ton of great news tonight in regards to the capital project, unfortunately. And I don't know how to sugarcoat it really. So a couple things have happened since our last meeting, and really, for the most part, it's been uncontrolled things, and that's probably the most frustrating part of a lot of what's going to go on here with all of this is the uncontrollable things that are associated with this. So. One of the things I talked about last month was the fact that we would be going to third-party review to expedite this, to stay on schedule. One of the things that we've really been pushing hard for is to make sure that our bids happen during February, March time this year to try to get the best opportunity to get the best bids. Between last meeting and this meeting, SED kind of changed the rules a little bit and said, we're no longer going to allow schools that are incorporating federal funds along with regular capital project to send them to third party. They have to stay with the state education department. However, we'll expedite them as priority in the state education department, all the projects that have federal funds. So, okay, so initially that sounds okay, so we're still gonna get the same thing and we're not gonna have to pay for it. So at first I was not completely, upset about that. However, within the last week here, and as late as an hour ago, there's no timeline on what that means to be expedited out of the SED. So, and what I mean by that is because this federal money is out there in a number of, and has access to all these schools, a lot of projects have federal money in it. So expediting only happens as fast as it can get through the number of federal funded projects. I'm assuming there's probably more projects out there on the table right now that have federal money included in them than those that don't. So in SED, as soon as an hour and a half ago or so, cannot give us any timeline on what expedited means. And this is really all associated with the federal money. Because if we didn't have federal funds into the project, and obviously we're thankful that we do and the money that's there, this could be moved to a third party and so forth and expedited and moved along. So that's that part of it. So it's in the system, it's logged, and it's on the list to be expedited with SED, but as it stands right now, there's no timeline. So my confidence level in meeting the timelines that we want to meet are not as strong as they were prior to this meeting. So that's the first piece of bad news. Now, where do we go from here? Well, I haven't had a chance to counter that call we just got like an hour and a half ago. But now there's some talk of separating federal money from the project money. And my question then is, can I at least expedite or take the part that's not federally funded and move that into an expedited third party, get that done so we get most of that work, off and running, And then, we're at the mercy of the federal money for anything that's associated with that. So I don't know the answer to that just yet. The other part of that is when we originally developed these projects, we blended the use of federal money with the capital project money, because that's kind of how this was all supposed to work. So when you say things that are included in federal money, obviously there's other things that are associated with that. So I'll use an example. Upgrades to the HVAC systems in the building also have controls that are with them, and electrical that are with them, and all those kinds of things. So some of that may be in the federal funds, and some of it might be in the regular. So you can't really expedite work that's associated with stuff that's connected to the federal. So I'm just giving you an example of how this, so we have to really look at this. If this is really a bad situation for these schools, can we do these things? And I'll be honest with you, one of the areas that I'm looking at and having them look at today is the air conditioning piece of this, because that's a blended piece of this. So, my question is, what's the reduction cost of pulling the AC or reducing that, and then the cost of shifting things back and forth with that? So I have them looking into that right now as we speak, to do that. Because one of the things I'm gonna go over with you is, part 2 to that is, we're looking at, as I've kind of led you guys into, or everybody into, looking at reductions of things that we may need to cut out of this project and things we may need to list as alternates for the project. They're very optimistic that some of the things that we would put into alternates would get done, that the bids would come in. Problem is that if we're not bidding until late, we're pushing this project out, we're pushing the potential for not getting the bids that we normally want. So it's one of these things, I don't mean to be, because, you get money from the federal government to do things, and that's great, and you have to almost try to take advantage of it, but it always comes with a little bit of headache, and that's kind of where we're at right now. We just function a little bit between state and federal, and there's not much that I can do, or the architect or the project managers can do. Everybody's in the same boat with this right now, so I really don't know what's gonna happen. As of today, they're still in SED trying to close out the projects from last year for final cost reports, I'm assuming. So they're not even done closing out people that completed their projects last year to get their final cost reports done, let alone getting into these other ones. So, yeah. So I've got more work to do with it and talk about, so I don't know that. So I almost feel like that's the story of this project tonight in the meeting, to just let you know all of that. But there are some things on here that I do want to just kind of talk about. So if you look at this sheet here, it's got a list. I put it on your desk tonight because I got this today. This is a list of, just to give you again, and I've kind of been updating some costs and different things that are associated with this, of us trying to figure out, where things can be eliminated and where things can be pushed into alternates. So as I look at this list, and keep in mind as I'm telling you this, when this comes down to, end of the line here, we're all gonna make these decisions together, whether it's in a separate meeting or whatever, in terms of this. But I just wanna keep giving you things so you're not, seeing it for the first time. So when you look at this list, you'll see masonry and reappointing 5,000 square feet at $113,000 is in this project. We believe, and some of our workers here believe, that in the areas that we need masonry work, we can do this ourselves for far cheaper than that. We have people that are on staff now that are skilled to do this, and we can, attack some of the areas on the brick that we need to do. So there's a potential there that we might be able to cut $113,000 right out of the project right there by us handling the masonry on the building for now. Number 2 is the handrails and the stairwell. I took you over on our tour and talked about the extensions in the elementary stairwells. Well, you can see the item number and what they're talking about in design of $85,000. Well, we pretty much think we can do a couple things there to make that a safer environment for a lot cheaper than that on our own. So we're talking about eliminating that piece of it as well. The bleachers might be even a little bit higher than that, but they're at $450,275. So we're looking at, in our discussion today, maybe sliding that over as an alternate, and pulling that from the regular piece and seeing how the bids come in and doing that. And again, I don't want to speak for anybody in here. I'm just kind of talking about things we talked about today. We've got, underneath that, we've got auditorium, and it's kind of not lined up correctly here for you. But there's, you know, some auditorium ceiling painting, the cove lights and so forth. And with both scenarios of the pool painting and the auditorium painting, believe it or not, the major cost in all of that is the scaffolding that's involved. Because we're not removing the seats in the auditorium, we have to scaffold over all that to do all the ceilings and lights and all that stuff. They want 6 figures to bring in the scaffolding for all that. The same applies to the pool area, the scaffold over the pool. That's the estimates on that, 6 figures. So, you know, the priorities of that and whether we want to invest in that right now is in question of whether that stays in there or not. As you move down through, you'll see number 6 says courtyard drainage. We have no idea what that even was. That's been eliminated. It was $35,000. Cabinet unit heaters in the hallway. So you have the original unit heaters that function well. We were going to, in the project, upgrade them to a little more modern hallway system. But those potentially could be, they're not a necessity. They're $50,000 worth of work just to upgrade the hallway ones. That's something that we might be able to eliminate because they'll still function under the existing system. The PA and phone upgrade, that's going to be eliminated. That's going to go into the Smart Schools bond because that qualifies for that. That's, again, money that we don't have to pay for there, so we're going to slide that over into there and pull it out of the project. Auditorium performance lights, $250,000. That's not the house lights. That's the performance lights on the stage. So yeah, we need an upgrade there, but you know, some discussions being held of, you know, on a priority cut list, is that something we put as an alternate as well? In terms of if there's money there, we're going to do it, but if the bids come in poorly, do we not do that? Now, do they need to be done? Yes, they do. There's some cost saving in that as well with the performance lights that can be found there. So, but just again, talking about whether that could be slid over to alternate. Bus garage lighting upgrades, again, these are things that we can do ourselves as they falter and start to upgrade those through time instead of investing necessarily $70,000. Stairwell walls and painting, any sort of painting and stairwells, we can do that kind of stuff. Plumbing and pool work stuff, reductions in scope. There potentially could be some things that we could reduce there that maybe we can do or are still good that we're going to replace. Again, I'm not sure if those last two are going to play into that because those are priority areas for me on this to make sure we're not in a tough situation in either area. But there may be some areas where we can do some reductions there as well. Like I told you today, I have them looking at the overall cost of what's in federal, what's connected to regular in terms of the HVAC and the elementary with the air conditioning upgrades. I know we put that out that during the vote that we're going to be putting AC, but you know, some of that may need to be looked at in terms of, you know, do we need to downsize that some? So, again, they didn't have cost for me on that today because it's in a lot of different areas, so it's going to take a little work for them to do that. But I'll bring that back to you as well. And then ultimately, we just kind of got to prioritize. There's some clear-cut things that I think, as I talked about today, that I think can be really cut out. I think those are pretty evident ones. And then there's going to be a few others that we've got to talk about and decide on our own what we want to do. The biggest thing is, what you have to understand is, if we cut it, it's gone. So it's out of the project. If we shift it to an alternate, it's there. Excuse me, it's there if we have money to do so. And that's the simplest way I can kind of explain
When
it to
does
you.
the final decision have to be made?
Well, I thought in the next, month or so, into January sometime, even if we had to have a separate meeting. But as the timeline changed where we're into March, so it might not be till February. You know what I mean? It's kind of going to play with that. But I've got them doing some work and so forth. But again, when we come down to this decision, we likely might have to have a separate just project meeting to talk about this together and go through that instead of doing it at just a regular meeting. Might have to have a special meeting. But we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out in the end. But you can see just in the numbers on this page, that's $1.6 million of reductions there. So, that's kind of, we're looking at those kinds of numbers, trying to get this down there, and you can't do that without chunks. So, the nickel and dime piece of it. And again, I'm holding tight on things that just have to be done. I mean, and then federal piece. So there's just a lot of moving parts to all that in terms of the regular project that we're doing. And I'll talk about the other stuff in a second here. But does anybody have any questions on the project? I apologize, I don't have a ton of great news tonight, but it is what it is right now. Okay, so again, this leads me into phase 2 of this. So I talked about last month the donation, the anonymous donation that we have, and some of the variables that play into that. So we didn't talk a lot about that today because we were so focused on the original portion of this. But one of the things that can be added to that discussion is potentially if there are some things that aren't fitting in right now and we wanted to get those done, they could be factored into the phase 2 part of this project, because we do need to have some sort of work in terms of that. When it comes to the building, you can't just do site work for a project for aid purposes. I'm waiting to hear back, I wish I had it tonight, but I don't, on making sure that all the aid discussion that I had last night is all accurate for you in terms of that. I just don't have those numbers. I'll probably get you those numbers before the next meeting and just send them to you, and then we'll talk about them at the next meeting in public. But, again, the piece of all this right now is, you have a donation that's earmarked for specific things. I will likely have some conversation after tonight to update the anonymous donor on where we're at with this. But as we discussed last month in the paperwork I gave you, there's a number of different options. There's options of we don't have any interest right now in any phasing of this going forward with that. There's the option of just doing lights and potentially an enhanced expense from the lights above and beyond the donation of that. And then there's the idea of that you finish your outside project and complete the field turf, lights, and so forth with that. And that's kind of the information I gave you last month to kind of think about, and we kind of discussed and so forth with that. So again, tonight is really about, and again, this is weird conversations for me with all the things I'm telling you, but it's hard. I can't, if we're going to do something or potentially doing something with that, that doesn't mean we're necessarily committing to it. We've got to be somewhat in on the exploration of that phase 2 part of the project so that I can get that work started so that we could start to put together real numbers, real project, real design, real type of things, and timeline stuff. But you kind of gotta decide on the route you want to go with that. If you want to take that and run with it, like I said, take the federal money, which is a big pain, as I'm telling you, the donation. But this is a time where you do have other money sources available that you don't normally have when it comes to a project. And I won't rehash or I'll answer any questions I had last month, but I kind of covered all the different pros and cons and all that last month. So I guess my guidance tonight and what I want to talk about so that when we have our meeting next week with the project people again, because they're going to update me on this, is do we want to move forward with the idea of exploring the expanded phase 2, or is it just something that we're just not really interested in at this point going forward? So, thoughts?
Anybody?
Doesn't hurt to explore.
I hate to turn the donation down, but we really have to look at our options, I guess. I mean, if we don't have the money for the extra part of it,
Yep.
but at least look into it, I feel. I don't know how everyone else feels.
I think it's kind of tough to go out there and take a donation and pour all that money in the field when we're looking at cutting this kind of stuff that's a necessity almost right now that we're looking at. Just my opinion.
Was the donation designated for field?
For the lights.
far, we haven't really gotten any number.
How about turf field? We asked the last time, it's every 20 years you're gonna replace it or something. We've had a football field out there for 60 years, and it's just as good as it was the first game we played on it.
But then the cost of the maintenance, would you say that kind of like evened it out?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you just gotta factor in, so, Mr. Ash, just last month, what was the maintenance cost this year for the fields?
It's about 12,000.
Yeah.
For all the fields or just the
All
football
of
field?
them, yep,
For
soccer,
soccer.
So you're
football.
talking all the fields, so
Yep.
it's not gonna be just 12,000.
Yeah. Yep,
You
soccer.
might take 3 or 4 for the football field or something, I'm just throwing that out there.
Yep.
It's not a total of 12,000 that we're gonna save.
Is it just soccer, football we do with that?
Soccer, football.
Soccer, football, yeah, those two fields.
Anyone else?
I don't know anything about scaffolding, but they're taking us to the cleaners.
Can't we buy it?
Anything you think?
We better buy it, and we got it.
Maybe we can get the Amish to build us one.
I don't know, is it like does it cover the whole pool, the whole thing? I mean, is it just a huge scaffolding?
It's to,
I don't know.
it's to span the school
Yeah.
or the pool, and the one side is so narrow that there's only a limited number of scaffolding that will work on that side. And the auditorium is because of the slant.
And probably you're getting hit with their liability
Yeah.
insurance.
Is
would be on
the
that
scaffolding
stuff.
be for the pool, for painting also?
Yeah, that's what it's
That's
for,
what
it
it's
gets up to
for.
that ceiling, over the pool.
Take the ceiling.
What is that stuff that's up in there now? That was done in the last project, wasn't it, Kelly?
That was done
That was before
10
me,
years
so.
ago.
yeah.
Greg Berlin would know about that.
And it was, that's sound reduction, that's to stop the echoing. And that would have to go back up, it would have to come down and go back up.
Is the paint that bad?
So it's,
Are the walls
it's
like
peel,
that?
it's peeling on the ceiling, part of that's associated with this dehumidification unit that we've gotta replace, so the humidity's causing it to peel.
It's all-
Hopefully, when we replace that, we'll have less peel, but it's, it's going to have to, it's not completely noticeable, but if I took you in there and pointed it out, you probably can see where it's peeling, that's just kind of the humidity of the pool. And ours is not
Even
good.
when it was painted last time, it was $70,000. With the scaffolding and the labor. And that was 10, 12 years ago.
So if we decide to just at least pursue this a little, we're not locked into anything, we're just.
So, no, there'll be a little bit of a cost association with them putting the work together with it. But, no, you're not locked in, because in the end of it, they'll say this, and this is what it's gonna cost, and this is the financial packet, and this is what it looks like, and this is how much it's gonna cost, and it's just like I would do that, and if we thought it was something that you wanted to do or move on with and put out to the voters, then I'd present phase 2 of it, just like I did the first project. There'd be a public hearing, we'd talk about what we're doing with this, talk about the donation. There'd be some other things. I anticipate if we did that, we'd be sliding some things maybe that are on here that might fit into that a little bit better. Excuse me. But, you know what I mean, that's just kinda how it would work. The added part of it is you're not starting from scratch, you'd already have the whole project team here. The way things are looking, you'd already be moving into next summer anyway with some of this stuff anyway. So, I mean, you're talking, we're not closing this thing out for another couple of years anyway. You know what I mean? You're gonna be 2 summers and some work here. Some of that, hopefully, we can get a lot of it done this summer. But I would guess that we're gonna be looking going into the following year anyway, for some of the work. Just based on lead times, this timeline I'm giving you tonight, I mean, this will be the next couple of years of this work. So, I don't know. All right,
Are we good with just at least looking into it further, everybody? Kind of, yes?
all right, so I'll get to work on that and start to put some more concrete, tell them we wanna move forward, look ahead at, look and see what it looks like, and then ultimately, in the end, we'll make a decision.
Okay, thanks. Friday food service?
So, this has been internally inquired about, also, I think within here, it's been inquired about as well. So I brought that to the table this month, because I wanted you to kind of get some background on this, and a lot of you know a lot about this already, you went to school here and know that it went on before, but prior to the pandemic, on Fridays, a local pizza shop in Newport would provide food service to the students here. They could call an order, and then they would come to the lobby out in front by the auditorium. They gave the kids a deal on whatever their lunch deal was for that Friday. They deliver to each of the lunch periods, however many lunch periods we had. Kids would tell them basically on period 5, they know our bell schedule. They'd be out there, bell would ring, they'd go out and get the food and pay the business and go to the cafeteria and eat the pizza. And we always had just like one local pizza shop there. And then, we had a lot of people participate. We're obviously a closed campus. It's rural. There's nowhere for them to go really here. It's not like you're in Herkimer or, up in Utica somewhere or anything. So it's kind of how that's all played. Some schools you probably have heard of will have open all the time, or maybe on Fridays they're open. But again, that's not really an option here. There's no timeline, nor, do we necessarily have any interest in allowing them to do that kind of stuff. So I think, and again, before my time here, way before my time, this was kind of the alternative to that for a closed campus that kids don't leave. Once COVID hit, and obviously it shut down and all that kind of stuff, we weren't really doing any visitors or bringing anybody in, and unfortunately some of the local businesses even folded and did some different things. But now we do have at least one local place that has inquired about bringing that back to West Canada, and they'd be willing to offer the same sort of service that we had prior to that, where they'd offer a deal to the kids. On Fridays, the kids could call in their orders, same way they did it before, basically new order. And I wrote on here, obviously, positive pieces. It's the opportunities for the students. You're supporting a local business, and it's another thing that's kind of return to the normal activity of West Canada Valley. So those are all the things I look at in terms of the good news about it. But I just want you to be aware of some things if you decide you would like us to move forward with this. If other shops reach out, is this, sort of a monopoly, or do we, if somebody else opens something, do we also open, you can order from any of these places and we let multiple in? I'm not saying I care, but I'm just want you to think about that. It's a little bit different situation here now. All of our kids here receive free lunches in the building. That wasn't the case back before this, but right now they all get one free lunch regardless of the income levels. I have no way to quantify this, but how many kids would order, I would guess that once it was opened up, there would be at least an initial rush of ordering. So when we don't serve the lunch that's in there, or we don't have that, it always hurt our purchases in the first place. But if we don't serve the free, we're not getting the reimbursement back on that particular lunch on the Friday that we do that. So I have no way to quantify what that would look like in the end, or how many would participate and whatnot. But you probably would see a reduction in the high school of the free lunches that are available. Now, maybe you get kids that would still get the free lunch and order the pizza. I mean, we got plenty of kids who now bring their lunch from home, but go through the line because the line's it's not enough food that we give them. So they eat that for free, and then they do that. Fine with us because we get the reimbursement on it. You know what I mean? So, they're buying lunch, we're feeding them, and they have their own lunches. So I don't know how to quantify it. I just want you to be aware we can handle it. We can do the periods. It's in the lobby. We know that we already have the structure in place. But I also want you to be aware of that piece of it as well. So, thoughts on that topic?
Can you explain for the cafeteria for high school, how do they plan how many meals to make? Because they're not taking lunch orders. I was just.
Yeah, so
How do they
there's
that?
just some general trends and estimates that we do, and they try to get it pretty close. And over time, they've gotten pretty good at seeing, like, today's this menu. You can't serve the same thing every day, even though you think you're going to make money on it every day. So, if it's pizza day, your number probably is a little bit higher than it is on, chicken and biscuits day, that kind of thing. So they kind of roughly estimate that just based on past data of sales and things like that during that time. So that's kind of how they determine it.
Does anybody have any thoughts on this?
I think that we should, let other shops, local shops come in. And when we were in school, there was 3 pizza places that came there on
Okay.
Fridays. And I don't know, there didn't seem to be any issues at that time, but
Okay.
I don't think it should be one place, you know?
Okay. I don't have that right now, I just
Right.
don't know if
Yeah,
there would
right
be.
now there's only
I haven't
one.
even physically spoke to the person who's interested, it's come to me through Mr. Broadbent and so forth. So, I mean, if we're pursuing it, I probably would have a conversation. Is the pizza shop open?
Yes.
In the appointment?
Yes.
Okay, it is open, okay. So, you know, that would be a conversation I would have with that individual.
Has that business come to the school to ask?
So that business came to you, Mr. Broadbent, did they require?
Yeah, I spoke to them, before they even opened. I told them it's something I had to talk to Mr. Shepardson about, and it would likely end up at the board for a conversation. And I'd get back to them.
So Mr. Broadbent basically said that he reached out before they prior to open and wanted to know from them if that would be a possibility once they opened of them
So we
coming.
went to them.
What's
No,
that?
they
No, they
called
called
me.
us, they came to us,
Okay.
yeah, no, we never went to anybody.
That's what I,
I think when this
couldn't hear.
gentleman, or the, you know, whoever the owner is of this, opened a business, they probably had prior knowledge that was done here before, and just inquired whether we'd be open to that happening again, so. That's kinda how it started, but I have not at this stage had a conversation, to see what the process would be with him, but I'm assuming it'd be similar to what's been done in the past.
I spoke to him a little bit about if we were going to do this, it'd have to be, sorry.
Yeah, just go on,
Oh.
if you got some.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
So I spoke to him a little bit. I told him if it was something that we did do, I would want it to be some kind of set, kind of personal pan pizza with a drink, something with a set price that'd be easy for us to function as far as, because we still have to get the kids to the cafeteria in a timely manner to eat. Kind of like a $5 personal pan pizza soda kind of deal. So he said that's something we could work with if we go to that direction. Other conversation I had with Mr. Shepardson is, do we allow like Grubhub? You know, at what level do we expand? Well, we would have to be very clear wherever we decide.
don't need everybody.
If we're open, that
Through.
was my concern, if we open the door to one, do you have to open it to everybody? That's.
So my general feeling on that is this is a local business thing,
Right.
if you do
Yeah.
it. So I don't have any interest in bringing, you know, McDonald's from
Right.
Herkimer.
If they have a
But
business in the district.
you know, if you're going to do it, it would be restricted to that, but, yeah. So anyway, that's the piece of that. I just, you know, I just want you to be aware of the positives and negatives, and if it's something you think we want me to reopen back up, I don't have any problem, I can execute that, do that. If you think we need to stay status quo, we have free lunches here right now, we've been doing this, it's kind of working, we're not ready to do that right now.
We just started that, I mean, that came
Do
through.
they ever serve pizza here?
Yeah,
They do?
yeah, once a week.
Thursday.
On Thursdays,
They what?
on Thursdays,
Why don't they move it to Friday?
because of the
I
ordering
think
out,
they
I
changed
think.
it because everyone was
Because
ordering
everybody's
out.
Well, if they're
ordering
not
out.
ordering out, if they order,
Yeah.
change it to Friday, maybe it'll be better. I mean, I don't know. When I made a comment last week, somebody said, or last month, it was, you ever had school pizza? What is it, frozen? I mean,
I don't know the answer to that.
is it so hard, do we have any equipment in the kitchen?
Yeah.
Is it that hard to make fresh pizza?
No, they make fresh pizza.
Here's the
Fresh.
deal with the pizza, I can tell you right now, that's our biggest business. I mean, it is. So, I mean, it can't be that bad.
Well, that's why it can't be that bad. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, you buy the crust now, they're either par baked or already baked. You put the sauce on them, you melt the cheese, and
Yeah.
how hard can it be?
Yeah.
If they want a personal pan, so get her the small ones and sell them. And they all got their own pizza.
Or
I don't know how tough it could be.
what if we told the kids what kind of lunches they like, that are actually good here,
So-
that they like, and then more people would buy throughout the week.
So here's, yeah, so I think we try to do some of that, but you're restricted by some of the process of what you're doing and how often, there's just a lot more restrictions. It'd be nice to always be able to offer the same things that you can. The piece of the, like, somebody asked me about, well, let's see if the kids, well, I don't need to poll the kids. I know
Right.
what my poll result's gonna be. I already know what that's going to be. Right? Do you want this or don't you? And I'm gonna get overwhelmed with yes.
I'm
so.
just afraid with everything that you had to go through to get the free lunch. Cause that's helpful.
Yeah.
Don't wanna jeopardize
I don't
that.
wanna jeopardize
Agreed.
that, and I don't wanna see, but like you said, you can't forecast that.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal for a lot of families to have their lunch is paid for, especially when you've got 3+ kids coming
Yeah.
to schools. I wouldn't want it to take, I mean, I understand it's a treat, it's,
Yeah.
but I don't want it to impact the grant that you have in place.
Yeah, so it wouldn't necessarily impact that, we'd still, because we qualify under the numbers that we have. Where it's gonna impact is when I come back and you ask me for the, and I don't know what the impact will be, but every Friday might have some impact on the total reimbursements that you know, so if you cut the reimbursements in half 4 times a month, times 10 months of school, you
And
know,
then you figure-
it's got, that number's gotta have some sort of impact on the reimbursement.
How's the kitchen supposed to plan and prepare for that? And you don't wanna make excessive and have
Yep.
food to go to waste.
Yeah, yeah, so that would change the Friday, kind of figuring out what we need to have on Fridays.
Well, if you did it once a month or every other week.
So that was also discussed a little bit, so I'm not saying you can't, I don't know if these places are really even open. So like, I don't know if that's a significant enough impact if I went to a business and said, hey, we're gonna do this once a month for you, the first Friday of every month. Is that of any interest of you, and whether that's worth their time and effort and resources to not have a regular, I mean, when you're on a regular Friday thing, that kind of became part of your.
And what time does your lunch start?
Starts early, I mean, the first pizza'd roll in at 10:30, so, I mean,
I'm
you're.
saying a lot of businesses don't open till 11.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
that would, on their back end, they'd have to come in and,
Yeah.
you know.
So you gotta weigh that piece, that's gonna factor into your, you know, your revenues in that piece. So, yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. Honestly, it's been functioning fine the way it is, but, you know, it has come up to me, so I just want you to be aware. From a standpoint of functionality, that's not an issue. But there are some other costs.
I know the business reached out, because it happened prior, have students brought it to anybody's attention.
Yes.
I've had a few students ask about it. Not a ton.
Okay, no, I was just
Yeah.
curious about that end of it too.
I haven't had like this big press to when are we gonna be able to do this? I mean, that hasn't happened, but it's come up, you know what I mean? So, again, tough ones tonight, but I'm just kinda letting you know,
I mean, could you go to them and say, we wanna just try it out once a month for a couple of months and see how it affects us, and then we'll decide if we wanna do it?
So the catch, I mean, I thought a lot about this and coming in and saying, hey, listen, let's see, and then let me get you some data and go from there. I don't wanna pull the rug either, though, so, you know, I got this person who's setting himself up, and again, I don't even know if they're open during those times. Some of these places open strictly for lunch crowds, you know, like there's pizza places in towns locally here that open up strictly because campuses are open, and they know the kids are gonna come down there and get a slice of pizza at lunch. And if I'm not, you know what I mean, I gotta be respectful of that, so you know, yeah, it's tough, like, once it's in, it's kinda
What if
in.
you do it 1 week and then we've got a Friday off, and then that's gonna,
Yeah.
True, yeah.
you know what I
Or
mean,
snow
or
day.
snow day.
Yeah.
Free lunch.
I'm happy just the
Yeah,
way
I
it is
know
what
myself,
you
that's
do.
my personal
No
No
opinion.
matter what
At
you
this
do, you're
point.
gonna affect your free lunch.
Yeah.
You can have a trial run, you can have 200 kids.
And what if they can't hold up to it on their end
Mhm.
to get them here and
Yep.
have kids late from work? I think
Yep.
you should just keep things as is, but that's my opinion.
Mine too. It's free, they're getting free pizza, I think just leave it like it is.
Maybe we could do something creative on Fridays, move pizza day back to Friday, like Carson's
Yeah.
saying, have like some sort of special on
Yep.
Fridays ourselves.
So
It used to be Friday.
So let's take it from here, if everybody's okay with that. I'll talk a little bit about this with our cafeteria. Talk about where we're at. We keep things status quo for right now. We will notify that person that called it. Right now, we're gonna stay the way we are. You know, it's not something you couldn't revisit down the road if it changed, and I'll see what I can do here a little bit and go from there. So, you good with that? Okay. All right.
Oh, very fun discussion. On the mascot mandate.
Okay, so the last item on the discussion list here is the mascot mandate. So, I'll vent a little bit. It's kind of like they were doing with everything went with the COVID, that stuff would get sent to the paper before. So the information and the emails that I think came from you, I didn't even know that memo, this memo that I supplied to you even came out until I got the email from you.
I had people
Yeah,
messaging
yeah.
me, and I didn't even know.
Yeah. So I'm gonna start with that because that's kind of how things work, and I think to a certain extent, that's how they want it to work. So, and it really, you know, kind of came around in the timing of it. You know, it was after the appeal by Cambridge. It was after November. There was a lot of variables into this whole thing. So the bottom line with this is I've given you the memo, and I'm not going to take time to read the whole memo. You've had an opportunity to read it. It's on public. It's publicly released. Everybody knows where it's at right now. This is citing 2001. Former Commissioner Richard Mills issued the memorandum concluding that the use of Native American symbols, depictions as mascots become a barrier to building safe and nurturing school community and improving academic achievement for all students. So, and it goes on to say this has been around since 2001. You know, the answer at this point is it's been 22 years, 21 years that this has been in place. Cambridge was, school district was told to remove it. Their school board appealed that, their new school board appealed that. It went to the state Supreme Court and it lost. So at that point in time, the 60 school districts that are left in New York State that have this have then been issued this memorandum to basically have this changed. So I gave you on the top of this, I highlighted some things in terms of what the guidance says. I just mentioned the initial issue was 21 years ago. There's going to be regulations that are being developed by the Board of Regents this month, and will be out for 60 days for public comment on that, and then there will be an FAQ that will be developed that will basically address probably some of the questions everybody has in their head in terms of how this is all going to play out. I also listed out some things in here in terms of who's involved with all of this and what schools, what type of mascots are involved in this. As I look through, the bottom line as we look forward into this piece of this is the mandate is now to develop a plan that must be completely executed no later than the end of the 24-25 school year. So the plan and the timelines, specific timelines, have to be placed in that plan as to how this transition is going to happen. If you have the plan in place and you have the timelines in place and it'll all be completely executed by the end of the 24-25 year, then you do not face removal of your superintendent, state aid reductions, and potential removal of board members if you're complying with that. So that's the meeting and regulation that I sat in at this point in time. There is no appeal to this. That's been done with Cambridge. There is no funding. Their answer to that question is you've got 21 years to make the change. So that's the direct quote. You know, you've got to look at all the things. So what we've done internally here is start to look at some of the areas where we would have to address this. You know, two of the bigger areas that we have, which will be a little costly, depending on how far we go with it, are the basketball court. Both have mascot emblems at center court. Some of the, speaking of turf fields, some of our local districts have that on their turf field. That'll be a problem. It's not just paint there, so that'll be an issue. We do have some different things around. The basketball scoreboards have some panels. The scores table has some, again, they're panels, they have to be. We only have a few uniforms that actually have something other than West Canada Valley written on it right now, so that's not a huge issue as part of our replacement plan. So there's not, for our district, there's not a gigantic cost. Probably, and Kelly, just based on what we reviewed, the biggest cost to us is the court, the 2 courts. I mean, so we'll have to take a look at how that goes as well.
The entire thing has to be redone, or just the circle?
So,
Except for the-
yes.
Okay.
So the feeling is that the center can be done and redone. But I also, yeah, I know it can be done, but you're still standing, so like when you do your floor and you got a bad spot on your floor, a lot of times you gotta sand the whole floor because you gotta make it. So that's further discussion on that.
When was the floor last done in the high school?
We do a floor every year in terms of rebuffing and finishing it, but in terms of sanding it down, we haven't sanded it since the original, correct? Yeah, that's the original. That's the original. We may have done some painting.
No, when it was replaced.
Yeah,
Otherwise replaced.
yeah, which was before me, so it's, yeah, double
Okay.
digit years ago, yeah.
So you're afraid of having a,
Yeah, I just gotta make sure if we're just doing the center, obviously it's more cost effective. But those are the 2 biggest. Your new scoreboards outside don't have anything associated with that. Yeah, so,
some of your signage out front?
yeah, some of the signage out a little
What
bit.
teams, sports have uniforms with it on?
I think, Mr. Doherty, we say boys soccer and track.
So your boys modified and boys varsity soccer, which you don't currently have a boys varsity soccer team right now anyways. The golf uniforms have an Indian head on the back, and track has them, boys and girls, but we're good for this spring. You can still have it on there. Next year it has to be replaced, and they're actually due for new uniforms next year. So, in the uniform replacement plan, softball's good. Modified was supposed to be up this year, so if we just swap boys soccer and move modified softball, they would be replaced next year too. And golf is they're just polo shirts, they're cheap. So we're actually in a really good position to get through this year and then have everything replaced next year and be compliant.
So that's part 1 to it, just kind of identifying that part. But part 2 to it is the planning piece. And that's kind of where I'm at tonight. We don't have to get into extensive talk on this, but in terms of, this change and the new change that's going to occur, the planning process and the involvement of everybody in that process, those that want to be involved in it, and how we go about that. So, for example, and again, a lot of the local districts will probably end up talking to each other. We have quite a few local districts that are in the same boat that we are right now. They're all meeting this month for the first time. I had a conversation with a local superintendent who's meeting, I think, tomorrow with his board. So everybody has their own things with this, and obviously the schools that still have that, take a lot of pride in that. We're not on an island here by any means. There's a lot of schools that are in the same kind of discussion. But as we move forward, how do we go about doing it in terms of that? And that'll be kind of my job with all of you and everybody, the students, the community, and, gathering thoughts and ideas about that and where we want to go with it, and ideas of what we think would fit this district moving forward. And then figuring out a process to narrow that down. The design of the mascot is a piece of that. I mean, I can tell you just like little pieces. There, schools that have merged where they've had to change because they've merged, have been involved in this kind of process just by default of merging. They put together some committees. They've offered different sort of opportunities for community input. They've had people who wanted to be on a selection or a selective committee to kind of gather it in. Districts have narrowed it down in the end to 3, and then they said, well, this is a piece of the kids' lives that are in school right now. Let's let them kind of vote. We got 3, we could go, or 2, we can go with either one of these, and let's let the kids vote on that. It's been done a million different ways, and we can do it however we want, and I'll help to do whatever we need to do with that and create the plans and put them together so that we're in compliance and all that and so forth. So, I guess that's even if we don't necessarily get into that tonight, it's just some things in your own ideas of how you would like to see this play out. Because by June, I have to have the plan in place. I don't necessarily have to have everything done by June, but I've gotta have the plan, and I'll know more specifics about that probably in the next month or so, of plan, how the process that we're doing it, the timeline of each aspect of what we're going to be doing.
It has to be done by June of 2025.
June of 2023. Well, the plan's gotta be done by June of 2023.
Well, the plan, but everything has to be done, executed
Correct,
by the
correct.
2 years.
So your focus right now is really on developing the process and plan for that change and how that would be executed from there. Yep.
And everybody know, no changing of the colors.
No change, the colors are not a variable to it. Nope.
Thank goodness.
No, colors are not a variable.
Janine has way too much purple to change the color.
I'm in trouble with all the Indian stuff too, I got a lot
Yeah.
of stuff with that too.
I looked back to old emails and I have emails from some in this room all the way back to 14 with me on this. That's how far long we've been having these discussions. So there must have been something in 2000, right when I first started on this.
We had something, what, a year ago?
And yeah, recently I've had some things, but I went back and just kind of typed in the history of the email and mascot emails that I had, just looking. I was looking for something else, and it went all the way back there, so I was just like, this has been for some of you in this room, we've been talking about this the entire time I've been here, for sure.
Where do we put the stuff that we have around that is the Indian?
So.
Like we have the headdress, we have the sign out here that the older, the class of
Yep.
60-something.
Yep.
Where do we
So-
put that?
So I'm waiting, I don't wanna answer that right now because I don't know what the FAQ is gonna be with historical type of things, if we make the change, if they're still, if everything that's been there, what's within reason of certain things.
I'm just wondering, does it stay on house,
Quite honestly,
or go somewhere?
and this might be way off base, if we can't have it in the building, things that we have in here that are of value, I probably would look to historical societies in the area, for those kinds of things. If we're not permitted to have displays of that here, I don't think that prohibits
Put it in
an
the
historical society from having things, because that's the history of the area, just like we have history museums and things like that as well. But I'm just cautiously saying that right now, only because I don't have a direct, it does clearly say that I've got to encourage outside organizations to comply with this as well, like the boosters and different things, like I can't have the booster club selling, things,
And the bridge in Middleville,
yeah,
the Indian, yeah.
so.
I was painted by an Eagle Scout.
So I guess for tonight's purposes, I don't need necessarily information on that. This will be kind of a topic regularly on our agenda. Next month, I'll probably want, by January, which will come around pretty quick after the holidays, probably want to come up with who's involved, process, and start to, and in the meantime, I'll start to develop my own kind of schedule for you and, step by step what schedule we need to be at certain points. And then kind of your input on, board members' involvement, community, adult involvement.
I would even go far, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
Because we had talked about this, but
Yep.
I'd like to see everybody involved,
Yeah.
and when you got your community, but you also have alumni
Yep,
that are all over.
Yep.
Even like, use your Facebook or whatever, or have, a
Yep.
lot of people are proud of this, then
Yep.
it's hurtful,
yep,
but we gotta do what we gotta do. I mean, it is our history, it's unfortunate, but I think as many ideas we can get and
Yep.
support from your outsiders, and maybe they have good ideas that we didn't think of, or
yep. I 100% agree with you. I think,
kind of move in that direction.
I think the
and-
more ownership that everybody has in it, the easier the
I
transition
mean,
will be.
not everybody's gonna be happy, but at least you had your,
Yep,
If everybody has input, they can feel
Yep.
better, so.
agree, 100%.
Okay.
Any other questions on that at this point in time?
Well, I just wanna say, I'm staying very calm in this, because you know how I feel.
To Mr. Conway?
But this Baldwin is a radical. Your state education department is falling apart. And they're more concerned about this than they are this. Safety of our kids, but they're worried about an emblem. And a mascot is basically for good luck. We don't have an Indian running around, we don't have hatchets, we don't have spears, we don't have knives, but that's what they're worried about. My concern would be, you get the whole community involved, you're gonna have a war. You're gonna have a war. Good idea with the alumni, you will have a war. Because I've had people call me, the alumni has called me. And no matter what they do, our hands are tied. They're using Hitler tactics, gonna fire you, gonna fire us.
They're fine.
They're dictating to people. They're just dictating. The state is dictating. So whatever we do, fine. My comment is, go with no mascot, because no matter what you pick an animal, the animal activists are gonna come at you. You can't use that. Somebody tells, what about the eagle? You can use the eagle. It's an honor bird of the Indians. I mean, jeez, come on, wake up. And when you get kids involved, they've got good ideas. But I would say, go with no mascot. Just call it West Canada Valley Central School. If it's gotta go, it's gotta go. But that flag out there is pretty near 80 years old. And that's a damn shame. This state can say we can't have that.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so we'll talk about that again.
Yep.
Next month. Announcements, December 14th, elementary winter concert K-2 at 6 p.m. and elementary band and chorus at 7 p.m. December 22nd through January 2nd, 2023 is the winter recess. And our next meeting will be January 9th of 2023. Public comments?
I just have one, from Mrs. McAvoy. It's a thank you to the school board, administration, staff, tech and cafeteria department, and custodial staff for helping make this year's Marion Crouch Memorial Craft Fair another success. After a COVID hiatus, we were able to have it again this year with lots of community participation and support. We appreciate all the help we got from the school and staff. A special thanks to Lisa Ackley, who was particularly helpful this year, handling some first-time issues we encountered during the day. Thanks to all.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify one thing about the concert. It's not K through 2, it's just kindergarten and second grade, no
Oh,
first
kindergarten
graders.
and
Yep.
second, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn, reading first, Sarah second, all in favor?